welcome back to the King's podcast, The Wellness Dive with Lucky. I'm your host, Esther Lackie. Today we are joined by Sian Moss. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. And she was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 28 years old. She's now 30, and she's here to tell us her story after remission. Sian,
Hi.
welcome here
Thank
to
you
the
so
King's
much for
podcast.
having me. Thank
It's our
you.
pleasure. It's our pleasure. So I understand you're a teacher.
Yes.
What do you teach?
Yes, so I teach primary, so year 5, so they're around 10 and 11. So yeah.
What subject, actually?
Everything, maths, English,
Oh,
topics, science, a little bit of everything with primary. So yeah.
nice. I hate math,
Oh no. Oh no.
but I try to accommodate it here and there, here and there. Yeah, so tell us, 2 years ago, is it?
Yeah.
You were diagnosed with breast cancer, and I understand it was one of the rare types.
Yes.
Do you mind telling us how it led up to that point?
Yeah, of course. It was completely random, actually. I didn't really have I didn't have any symptoms other than I was in the gym one day and I pulled my shoulder, so something completely unrelated. And I kind of just put my hand here, and the bottom of my palm just felt what was like a marble just in my breast here. And it was all I could describe it as is a marble. Like, it was about the same size, it was hard, and that was kind of it. And I kind of thought, that shouldn't really be there, like that's a bit odd. So then when I got home, I kind of had like a feel around, felt the other side, and there was nothing there. But you know when just something just seems odd, like a marble just randomly appearing.
Exactly. And for some
inside.
reason, it doesn't leave your mind.
Yeah, and it was just something was just
Bothering you, yeah.
telling me to go and get it checked. So I booked an appointment to go and get it checked here at King's. And then within 2 weeks I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. So triple negative is the rarest. Only 15% of breast cancers are triple negative, and it's very, very aggressive. It was grade 3, which means the cells were out of control, basically. So I was so lucky to have caught it at stage 1. But like I say, I wasn't unwell, I wasn't ill, I didn't have any other symptoms. So it was just a small lump, like a marble. And you sometimes think you would be ill if you were diagnosed with cancer. I remember the first thing I said was like, how can I have cancer? I'm not even ill, I don't understand. But I did, and so I was very, very lucky, very lucky.
So let me ask you, before that point, have you ever thought of having a breast cancer screening?
No, because obviously, as we know, screenings aren't really available for women my age. It's just self-examinations, really. And the reason for that is because in younger women, your breasts are very dense.
Exactly.
And actually, mammograms aren't that effective. It's the ultrasounds that are kind of more effective for women my age, especially for me. But because I don't have any family history and I don't carry any of the genes, which we now know, obviously screening for me wouldn't necessarily be essential because I wasn't necessarily considered high risk. That's why people my age and under 40 like need to be doing self exams, because if I hadn't have accidentally found that lump, it could have been months and months and months before I found it, because I've never ever done a self examination. And some people say, oh, how do you do it? But you can't really do it wrong. Like, as long as you're having a feel around, it's fine, you know. And then you know your body and you know yourself, so then if something changes, you will be able to spot that quickly. I was very lucky to just catch mine by accident, really.
So, let me ask you, when you were told you actually have breast cancer, what was your reaction?
Well, I think I was just in shock to start with. And my first reaction was like, are you sure? Because I'm not ill. Like, that was kind of my first thing. Like, how can, like, I've had friends and family who have had cancer and they've been really unwell. You know, you think of cancer and you think of someone being unwell. So how did I have it? But I'm a very practical person, so I just wanted to know like what I needed to do. And at the time, they didn't give me too much information on that first appointment, because obviously I think being told you've got cancer is kind of
it's not an everyday thing.
But then me being being me, as soon as I got told, I was then like, right, okay, I need to get to work now. And the doctors were like, you are not going to
Seriously?
work. Yeah, I just was like, right, okay, thanks for that. I need to go to work. Obviously, I didn't go to work. The doctors were just like, no, you can't. You're not going to work. But I don't know. I'm just a very practical person. I'm just like, right, okay, this is that. Let's just get on with it and deal with it. So yeah, that was so yeah, an
Yeah. Who was the
interest.
first person you called?
So I called my friend who I work with. So I called her, and then she came to the hospital and came to get me. So yes.
What about your family? At what point did you inform your family?
So I waited for quite a while to tell my family because obviously all of my family are in England, and I worry more about how other people will react. Like I know I knew I was going to be fine. Like I was okay. I dealt with it very well. But I just was worried about how other people would react. So I think I left it about a month
Wow,
until
that's
I
long.
told anyone. Yeah. So I told my brother after a couple of weeks, but he was the only person in England out of my family who knew.
How
Which
was his reaction when you told him?
um, he, my brother's a very chilled person. He was just like, okay, so what is going to happen? But at this point, I didn't know the answer to his questions because we were still waiting for all of the results and things. And he had so many questions that I couldn't answer. And luckily, my brother is a very calm person, and so are my mum and dad and my other members of family. But I just didn't want them asking questions and me not be able to give them the answer. So I just waited until I knew everything, the stage, the treatment plan, the type, everything. So then I could just call and be like, this is the situation, but this is what we're doing. And any questions they then had, obviously, I could then answer. So yeah.
And then, what stage was the cancer?
It was stage one. Lucky.
Lucky.
How I
Lucky.
caught it
Yeah.
at stage one is,
Yeah.
yeah. So they thought maybe it was going to be stage two because I had two lymph nodes which were inflamed. But they biopsied them and then they removed where they were in the surgery, and they luckily never had cancer in them. But it was obviously like starting to try and spread because those lymph nodes were inflamed. So obviously that would have been its next path. But thankfully, luckily, it was stage one. Very, very lucky.
So after the diagnosis, you waited. You eventually told your parents. After your brother,
Eventually,
you
yeah.
took your sweet time telling
I
them.
know, I know.
I hope they were not pissed off
No,
at you.
they were fine. They were honestly fine. Like they know me as well. So yeah, I'm a very I don't really know, how can I describe it? I'm calm and like I say, I'm very practical and
You don't panic.
I don't
You
panic.
don't show your panic
Yeah,
rather.
yeah. I may be panicking inside, but I'm
But
not
on the outside, you're so calm.
yeah, exactly.
There are people like that.
So they know they weren't shocked that I waited to tell. And I like to deal with things kind of on my own, and I'm very independent, so they weren't shocked.
All right. So what was the next step? The treatment phase.
So I think it was about 3 weeks after I was diagnosed, I then started chemo
With Dr. Hassan
with
Gaza.
Dr. Hassan.
He's so nice.
Yes,
He's
Dr.
so good.
Hassan.
Yeah.
I love him so much.
Yeah.
So I started chemo with him. So we did chemo first. So I had 12 rounds of Taxol and carboplatin. So that was every week. And then after that, I moved on to the Red Devil, which is like one of the chemo of all chemos. It's
How
called...
tough was it?
Honestly, it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Like I was expecting it to be absolutely horrendous. It wasn't great, I'll be honest. But I kind of I wouldn't say I felt unwell. I would just say I just didn't feel well, if that makes sense. So I just felt a bit
It just felt
strange.
off. You know,
Yeah.
it just felt off.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
that. And like things like I'm such a sociable person, like I can have so many different conversations at once. But whilst I was having that chemo, I could barely concentrate on just having a conversation with one person, let alone kind of being in a room filled with people. But what I always think is, so after my first one of AC, which is the Red Devil, I did feel really unwell. Like I felt really sick. It was just awful. But I think because I'd already had the 12 sessions of the other chemo, I knew that this wasn't necessarily what it was going to be like the whole time. Whereas I think if I had had that one first, and that would have been my first experience of chemo, I think my situation could have been very different, because your brain does things to you. If you start off unwell, then it kind of doesn't, it's not a positive outlook for the rest. But because my first one was absolutely fine, I was like, no, come on, like it's not going to be like this all the time. It's not going to be like this all the time. And it wasn't. So after the first one was bad, but the rest.
Okay, let's talk about your hair. I remember initially you didn't lose your hair. You were wearing this kind of gadget on your head. What is that all about?
So I used the cold cap. So I basically sat with a block of ice on my head for the whole of chemo.
Wow.
So I would have to have it on, I think it was for like 2 hours before or an hour and a half before chemo, then all the way through chemo, and then for like 2 hours after. So it would add on like 4 hours to and chemo was long anyway. But the biggest thing for me at the beginning, because I had such long hair, and I was like, I can't lose my hair. Like, I don't want to lose it.
But look at you.
I know, I actually love it. It's come back curly, which is amazing. But I did, so my hair stayed for 14 rounds of chemo, and I had 2 left. And then it just gave up. It just started coming out, because, and they did always say that could happen, but you just always hope that it won't. But it did. But do you know what? It was really tough, especially because I'd got so close to the end, and I was kind of like, why is this happening now? And it was so stressful. Yeah, it wasn't nice. But then I actually lost more hair after chemo. So my hair fell out for 14 weeks after I finished chemo. And then I ended up having it all cut off anyway.
So when you're cutting it off, what was going through your mind?
Well, when I cut it off, I had got to the point where I just wanted it off my head, because the new hair had started to grow through, but I still had some of the old hair left, and it was awful. I was so self-conscious about it. I was just scraping it back all the time because I couldn't do anything with it. So actually, by the time I then had it cut into a pixie cut, I was just so glad to get it.
But you looked amazing. You rocked the pixie
cut.
Oh,
thank you. And it's now come back curly, which I had straight hair, which is crazy. So
it's very beautiful.
I love it,
and it looks so thick.
I know it is. It is so thick. I always did have thick hair, so yeah, it's come back really thick, but yeah, curly. So, but they do say if you lose your hair with chemo, it can come back curly or a different color. But I didn't think mine would, because I never lost all of my hair in one go. Like, I was never bald. I didn't think it would come back any different, but
here you are.
I know.
So after the chemo, what else in your treatment journey? What else happened?
Okay, so then I had a lumpectomy. So I didn't have a mastectomy because it hadn't spread. I didn't have any of the genes. I was tested for like the BRCA genes and things like that. I didn't have any of those.
Yes, so just to be clear, the lumpectomy is when they just take out the lump plus a few healthy tissues surrounding it.
Yeah, so basically, so my lump had actually pretty much disappeared by the time I got to surgery. So it started off as 1.9 centimeters, and then by the time I had an ultrasound before surgery, that we couldn't see it wasn't there anymore, but they take out the area and then I'm kind of like the living proof of why they take out the area, because on the ultrasound we thought I had a 100% like response to chemo. We thought it had completely gone and it wasn't there. However, that wasn't the case. When we did the lumpectomy and took out the area, there was 0.5 millimeter of cancer still there. Because so many people ask me the question of like, well, if it's gone, why are you having the surgery? Because the lump may be gone, but it may have left some of the cells behind. So it was tiny, and it when I first started, it was grade 3. It had gone right down to grade 1. Like they were basically dying off, but there was still cancer there. So that is why we do a lumpectomy, just to get the area out.
And so after the lumpectomy, you had radiation.
Then I had radiotherapy.
How was that?
Yes, radiotherapy wasn't too bad. So I had 30 rounds. So I used to go every day. Yeah, but do you know what? It was fine. It really wasn't that bad. It was just all over like the Christmas period, so it's a little bit annoying, like when I was having to go to the hospital over Christmas. But it was fine. yeah, just more of an annoyance really going there every
Mm-hmm.
day, but it is what it is. But then I thought that was going to be where my treatment stopped. However, because of the 0.5 millimeter left, I then had to have 6 months of chemo tablets.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I was told that, that was possibly one of my biggest breakdowns, because this was in November and I thought my treatment was going to finish in February. And then all of a sudden I'm being told, actually, your treatment's going to go on until July. And
July this year.
yeah, so I just finished in July. But the chemo tablets were actually fine. I was terrified to take them. I was like, I don't want any more chemo, but I wouldn't even have known I was on them. It was absolutely fine. So
Wow. So during all this time,
mm-hmm.
who were your support network? Your parents, your family flew down here, and
Yeah, so I'm so lucky because my friends are amazing out here. I have so many amazing friends, and I couldn't have done it without them. Like, I had them stay over at my house. They would take it in turns coming to chemo. Like, anything I needed, like, someone would be there. They had like little chats, like WhatsApp groups just with them, like making sure I was all right. Like, is someone checking on Sian today? Is someone doing this? Like, they were just amazing. And then my parents flew out a couple of times, so they came to visit me a few times. I had some friends from England come out and fly
wow.
out to visit me as well. One of them surprised me on one of my chemo days, which was just
Oh,
lovely.
so sweet.
So and also, like, where I work, my school were just amazing, and just were really accommodating for the whole year. So lots and lots of people. So even though I'm in Dubai on my own, I wasn't really on my own. I had
You're not
loads of people around me.
such an amazing support network you have there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I remember this one time when you came out of Dr. Ghazal's office
Mhm.
and you rang the bell.
Mhm.
How was that feeling? You had been declared cancer free.
Well, so no, so the ringing of the bell was after you finish chemo. So that's
Aha.
kind of like ending the chemo journey.
Mm-hmm.
And
Not
then
actually being cancer
not the
free.
whole, no. So
Uh-huh.
really, I've only been cancer free technically, only really for the last couple of weeks, because I had to have all of my chemo tablets. So although I was technically cancer free in November after the surgery, I still then
You
had
still
my
had to take
treatment.
the.
So some people would say I was cancer free come like when it was November, but for me
But
personally,
only you know where you are at
yeah,
every
I
moment.
feel like I had an MRI a few weeks ago, and I feel like that was my definite. But it's so strange, because when I rung that bell, it was almost a year ago now.
Yeah, it
I
was.
was so excited and like,
Yeah,
yes,
I
yes,
remember. I
yes, I've
remember
done it.
saying,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like, it was the best thing ever. And then it was so, I always thought I would be like that when it all came to an end. But it's so weird, because then so much time had passed, and it kind of got to then when I got the MRI results and got to the end of this bit, I was a bit like, oh,
Okay, so that's
yeah,
it.
it was so strange. I'm like, how have I gone from this to being like, oh, fantastic, done?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just strange. I think
Yeah.
because it's become such like part of my life. So yeah, it's interesting.
Looking back over the last 2 years
Hmm.
since you were diagnosed,
Hmm.
did you ever get angry? Do you ever get angry and ask yourself, why you? Why me? I've done everything right. Why
Mm.
me?
There were times, however, I just always felt like it could have been so much worse. Like, if I had not found that lump by accident, even in 6 months, it would have been a completely different story. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I was just very grateful that I actually managed to catch it. The only times I would be angry was when my hair started falling out, actually, because all the other times I was still going out with my friends, I was still going to brunch at the weekends, like, I was just living my normal life even through chemo. But then when my hair started falling out, that was when I started to think, like, why me? Like, why am I going through this? And I was canceling on plans because I just didn't feel myself. So that was kind of a period of time where I did feel a little bit angry, because it was like, why is this happening to me and no one else, and I'm now missing out on things, and it's not fair. But it only lasted for a little while, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to pick yourself back up,
Of
because
course.
if not, I would
Mm-hmm.
just be sat in my apartment being miserable, and I don't want to
Yeah,
do
yes, of
that.
course.
So you have to pick yourself up. But of course there were times, but I was mainly just grateful that I actually caught it when I did, because like I say, it could have been a completely different story. So
True,
just very lucky.
true, true. So, right at this moment,
Hmm.
where are you? How are you?
Do you know what? I'm just so happy and content just to have my normal life back. I don't have to think about taking tablets every day. Yes, I still have my checkups, but they're every few months. It's not like I'm going to a hospital every week, apart from this month, because obviously it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm in and out of hospitals all the time, but for a different reason. So I'm just so happy just to have my normal life back. And I've just find I was content with life anyway. I love my life anyway, but even more so now. I'm just it's even when I've got like loads of work to do from my job and I'm working at home. I actually sat there and had loads of work to do, and it was in the evening. I was like, I'm actually just so grateful to be able to do this and just get back to normal. Like I wasn't annoyed that I was working in the evening, just glad to be back to normal.
Yeah, that's
Normal.
lovely. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
You're pretty
you.
strong.
Oh, thank
So
you.
based on your experience, what you've been through, what would you like to tell women out there, even men, because there's a small percentage that develops breast cancer. What would you like to tell them about breast cancer and screening and self-checks?
Just to be aware of your own body, and if something doesn't feel right, go and get it checked. Like just because women don't have mammograms until they're 40, it still doesn't mean it doesn't mean you can't get breast cancer, like you need to go and get something checked. And if you're not happy with the first opinion, get another opinion, because I hear of so many stories where people have been turned away for being too young, or, oh no, we don't think it's anything. And actually it is something, and people still have that concern. So I just think keep getting things checked, and don't rest until you're happy with what someone is telling you, and just know your body's really, and if anything goes off, you just go and get it checked.
Well,
because it's your own
I'll
life.
take your advice if I wasn't already doing it. All right, Sean, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you.
And we wish you so much luck. You're strong, you're brave, and you have such a positive outlook on life. You're so bubbly.
Thank you.
I hope I'll be seeing you soon.
Of course.
Yes. So yeah, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Sian Moss, breast cancer survivor, a teacher, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Anybody can develop cancer. Get checked, get screened, do self checks. Until next time, goodbye.